there. Oh, what power. I walk on stage and you're all quiet. It's lovely for me to be here today. I love coming to Henley. It's so beautiful down by the river. Hello to everybody here. Hello to anybody that's watching from their schools all over the country. That's a very exciting thought. I love coming out to talk to children about my books. As we've just been told, I have written over 100 books. That doesn't mean I'm over 100, but I love writing, and it's what I wanted to do ever since I was about 6 years old. And people thought this was a rather silly thing. They thought it was a bit like maybe wanting to be an influencer or a footballer or an amazing rock star. They thought it was a fantasy and that I would never, ever get to be a writer. But amazingly, I did. I have been writing ever since I was 17 years old. And I've sort of gone on and on and on. And nowadays, because I'm probably quite a bit older than your grandmas, people say to me, why don't you stop writing? But I can't. I just love writing so much, and it's become part of my routine. And when you think of a writer writing every day, do you think they write in their studies and work all day long? I don't. Some writers do. Writers have all got their different ways of doing things. But I like to write in bed. I'll tell you how it works. I am woken up very early indeed by my cat, Jacob, who's very elderly now. He's grey with a white face. He's very gentle, but the one time he actually gets a bit pokey is about 5 o'clock in the morning when he thinks, breakfast time. And he comes and lays himself down beside me, and then he gives me a little poke with his paw. And if I mumble, go away, Jacob, much too early, he gives another poke. And those of you that have cats know that they also, inside their lovely fluffy paws, have got claws. And if I keep him waiting a very long time, he gives me a little poke with a claw, not to hurt me, just come on, I'm your alarm clock. So I very sleepily actually put out his food, and he has that, and then wanders off again, and I go back to sleep. But I have to set my alarm because I've got 2 dogs and 4 hens. How many of you have got dogs? Hands up. Cats? Hands up. Hens. How many? Not a lot of people have hens. I live in the countryside, and lots of people have hens, and we have just got 4 lovely new hens, and they need a lot of attention too. So what I do, I shove some old clothes on and go outside with the 2 dogs. Now I've got an elderly dog called Jackson, who's a bit grumpy. I don't know if any of you have got grandpas who get a bit grumpy, maybe because their legs hurt or their back hurts. Jackson has had a lot of things wrong with him, so I expect he's got arthritis. So we have to be very careful and gentle with him, because he often sort of goes at you, but he never, ever bites, thank goodness. So there's Jackson, my terrier, okay? And then I have a lovely golden teddy bear of a dog, a cavapoo, called Molly, who I adore. And I've actually put both my dogs in different books. In books about Tracy Beaker when she's grown up, her little girl, Jess, has a very naughty dog called Alfie, and that's based on Jackson. And then I wrote a book recently called The Girl Who Wasn't There, and the main girl in that has a lovely golden cavapoo called Molly. That's one of the exciting things you can do when you write books. You can put actual real animals in your books. And I've told the animals about this. They don't seem the slightest bit bothered about it and just think, what's she whittering on about? Why doesn't she feed me? So maybe if I ever have a granddaughter or a grandson, I will actually put them in my books, and maybe they'll like that too. So as my writing routine, I take the dogs for a walk, just a quick walk. Then I come back indoors, I make myself a cup of coffee, and then go back to bed. Just maybe have my dressing gown on. I've got 2 pillows and sort of prop myself up on the pillows. I used to write everything by hand, which I like to do. I've got heaps of notebooks at home with all my stories in the notebooks. But nowadays, of course, I have to use a computer. So I have a laptop on my lap, and I'm all comfy, got the coffee there, and then I start writing. And I write and write and write, and probably for about at least an hour, maybe 2 hours. Now, when you start to write a story, if you're really just started at the infants and started to learn to print words, you might write a sentence or 2 sentences. If you've proceeded up the school a bit, you might be expected to write half a page or a whole page or even 2 sides of the page. And that would be about 100 words, maybe 200 words. I know when I was at school, we sometimes cheated because we printed or wrote when we got a bit bigger in proper handwriting, but we made our words very stretched out. So it looked as if we'd written far more than we actually had. And sometimes when I used to write everything by hand, I made my words stretch out then just to pretend to myself that I'd written a lot. You can't do that on a computer, and you have a word check thing, so you know exactly how much you've written. And I try and write 1,000 words every morning. And if you write 1,000 words every morning, you will have finished a whole book including rewriting bits in 6 months or so. So I managed to write 2 books a year. Sometimes I've even written 3 books. During the pandemic, lots of adults decided to do different things when they couldn't go out to work. They baked bread. They maybe learnt a new language. They maybe tidied up their houses. Well, I buy my bread in the supermarket. I can't speak any other language other than English. And my house isn't at all tidy. If anybody is coming, I have to rush round for an hour or so, getting everything looking neater than it actually is. What I did during the pandemic was write much more, because I liked doing it so much. Now, usually, I make up my own characters and my own settings. That's where the book is based, myself. But occasionally, I take a writer from the past who's no longer alive, and I write something which is to do with their books. And I was thrilled to bits when a very nice publisher asked me if I ever fancied writing another Faraway Tree book. And I had read The Magic Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton when I was a little girl, when I was 6 years old. And I thought these stories were lovely. They were magic, and yet there were real children who lived in a cottage, and they were on the edge of a very special enchanted wood. And in the middle of this enchanted wood, there was a tree, a huge tree that reached right up to the sky. And the children, being children, like to explore, off they went, and they started climbing up the tree. And they met all sorts of magical people. They met a man called Moonface, who could do magic tricks, and he had the most wonderful sweets called toffee shocks. Who likes toffees here? Hands up if you do. Right. Very bad for the teeth, but delicious to eat. Well, Moonface's toffee shots, you put it in your mouth, and then it would get bigger and bigger. Normally, when you put a toffee in your mouth, it gets smaller and smaller, but Moonfaces get bigger and bigger and bigger in your mouth. And it's just so delicious, but just when you think, I can't manage this anymore, it goes pop, like that, and it disappears. And then if you're very good, Moonface will give you another one. I loved reading about this. Now, Moonface has a friend, Silky the fairy, who, when I was a little girl, I was quite plain. My hair was dark brown then, and I just had it chopped short. And my mum was quite fierce about making me wear she said they were ladylike clothes, but they weren't pretty, and they weren't pretty colours, and they never had any lace or anything. They were very plain. And Silky the fairy had glorious, long, golden hair, exactly the sort of hair I wanted. And she wore beautiful dresses, and she could do magic. And I wanted to be Silky the fairy, or at the very least be Silky the fairy's best friend. And there were other strange magical creatures too. So the children would go up the tree and visit them all. And then at the very top of the tree, when you got up to the sky, there was a ladder. And you climbed up the ladder, and there at the top was a magic land. And there were different magic lands every time you went up there. And sometimes they were quite scary. I remember reading in one of Enid Blyton's stories about the faraway tree, there were some very fierce polar bears. And I do remember being scared, but in that kind of delicious way. It wasn't the sort of scary thing where I would lie awake, frightened that they were real. But I loved those bits. But even better, I liked the bits where there were very happy things happening, often at the end of the books. And there was the land of wishes, and you could wish for anything you'd ever want. And the main children in the book, the boy wishes for a pony, and the older girl wishes she could fly, and the little girl wishes she could have a doll that would be like a real little girl and could walk and talk and be her friend. And I pondered long and hard over this chapter when I was 6, 7, 8, thinking, which would I wish for? And so these characters have been very real. Then I grew up, obviously read adult books, not children's books, but I wrote children's books. Years and years went by. Enid Blyton sadly died quite a while ago now, and she must have absolutely worn herself out by writing, because you were told I had written over 100 books. Enid Blyton wrote 600 books. I think she must have been writing her books all day long and half the night. But anyway, she became very, very popular. And the publishers thought, how about having some other children's writer write 1 or 2 other faraway tree books? And they asked me, and I was delighted, because I could now write about Silky and Moonface with his toffee shots and the faraway tree, and I could make up my own magic lands. So I very happily sat down and started writing my first faraway tree book, and I invented 3 children. I have the first one, the oldest boy, Milo, who is a bit bossy, likes to feel he's the most special one because he's the oldest. He loves running, he's very fast at running, but he doesn't tell anybody, but he's a bit scared of heights and doesn't like to be too high up. Then there's his younger sister, Mia, who's also good at running and absolutely determined to beat him at running if she possibly can. And she's very, very fond of animals and has the way with her. You know, some people can just, somebody's dog, somebody's cat, somebody's rabbit, they just sort of hold them or stroke them, and the animal just calms down. That's Mia. And then there's a very little girl called Birdie, who's very funny and sweet and really is into fairies in a big way. And so I wrote this book about them, and they go up the faraway tree to different magic lands. Mia particularly likes the lands of unicorns. Milo liked the lands of dragons. There were all sorts of different lands for them, and I love writing that book. And so the publisher said, would you like to write another book? And I said, yes, please. And the first book took place in the summer holidays. And so I thought, let's think of another holiday time. And I wrote this book. Now, there's a big tree which has got decorations and presents. So what time do you think it is? What time do you think? Christmas, absolutely. So this is the Magic Faraway Tree, a Christmas adventure. And then the children go and stay in this cottage. It's like an Airbnb. Do you know what that is? It's when you go on holiday and you stay in a house and can do what you like in the house, and often they're in very exciting places. So the children go at Christmas and they're very much hoping it will snow and that it will be all cold and crisp and lovely. But sadly, when they get there, the weather is absolute rubbish. It's not snowing at all. It's cold, and it's very windy, and it's very, very wet. And so it's really doesn't feel at all Christmassy. But the children still can't wait until they get to go up the faraway tree and meet up with their friends. So off they go. And because nowadays, I don't think your mums and dads would let you go out and play all day long and just come back at supper time, the way in Enid Blyton's time children used to do. So I have it so that when you cross over the ditch into the enchanted wood, with all these trees going whisher, 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 time stands still, and you can have a whole day of playing and having fun, going up into a magic land and back again. And yet then when you get back home, your parents think you've just been playing in the garden, and they're still having their second coffee after breakfast, which I think is a very convenient way of keeping the children safe. And you know that whatever they do and how long they stay out, their parents won't worry. So they go up the faraway tree, they meet Silky, they meet Moonface, they meet a funny old man called Saucepan Man, who has saucepans all over him, so he jangles all over the place. And then they go up the ladder for the first time. And they were expecting somewhere Christmassy, but because it's been such a wet, windy time, they actually come up into a different land altogether. It is a land of sunshine. And so it's a beautiful beach. They can buy all sorts of beach toys and all different sorts of ice creams. There's a machine making all different flavors: vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, salted caramel, blackcurrant, and raspberry ripple. They can have as many ice creams as they want. And Silky, that's the fairy, she chose a yellow mango lolly studded all over with raspberries. Milo had the hugest chocolate cone ever with a whirl of cream on top. Mia had a big white ice cream on a stick in the shape of a polar bear. And Birdie hopped around for ages, unable to decide. I'm a bit like that when you go to one of these Italian places with all different flavours of ice cream. And eventually chose a whippy made of every single flavour with strawberry sauce and 2 chocolate flakes. And then they all have a swim in the sea. And Mia has a swim on the back of a sea unicorn. That would be exciting, wouldn't it? And Milo gets to swim with dolphins. Has anybody here been lucky enough to go on holiday and swim with dolphins? Wow, you are very, very lucky. I've never done that. I hope to goodness I get to do it one day. And then Birdie gets to swim with a real mermaid. And maybe somebody will tease and say, yes, they've done that, but I don't think so. But how wonderful it would be if you could. So they have a wonderful, wonderful time, and they feel so much better. And when they go back to their mum and dad, and it's cold and windy, and they're all wet because they've gone through the forest, mum and dad are really surprised because they've got lovely suntans on their faces. So they've had a good time in the land of sunshine. And then, after some time at home, they go somewhere else entirely, and they go to, right, where are they going to go to? I wrote the book. I should know. We'll have to find out. They find out that it snowed outside, and they go to the land of the frozen north. And that is a lovely place because there are all sorts of different black bears in the north and little Arctic foxes, which they like. They see some reindeers by a lakeside, and then Milo decides to go and look for some special berries, which he's heard grow in the north, called lingonberries. And he goes into this wood searching for them. And then it gets darker and darker and darker. And he's left all his friends behind. And then he sees yellow eyes peering at him. And he's actually found himself with wolves all staring at him. And he's really scared. Now remember, I said he was good at running. So he runs and runs and runs. And as I expect you can guess, he does get away from the wolves. And that's fine. So that's the land of the sunshine and the land of the frozen north. And then there's a nice Christmassy bit back in the cottage. And the children write letters to Santa Claus, and then there's a fire in the chimney, and they let their letters fly up the chimney to Santa Claus. And Mia says, "Dear Santa, please may I have my own pony, or a puppy, or a kitten, or a guinea pig, or any kind of animal at all? Love from Mia." And Milo writes, "Dear Santa, I'd really love my own game console, though I know they cost a fortune, and a new pair of running shoes, and a skateboard, and an electric bike, even though Mum and Dad say I'm not allowed. Cheers, Milo." And then Birdie writes in big wobbly print, "Dear Santa, I want lots of presents, but I don't know which. Love, Birdie, kiss, kiss, kiss." And then Mum and Dad write letters to Santa too. Mum writes, "Dear Santa, please may I have a new handbag and a bottle of my favourite perfume and beautiful handmade gifts from Milo, Mio and Birdie. Love from their mum." And Dad writes, "Dear Santa, I'd love a giant Lego set so I can get building with my children." Lots of dads like to play Lego. "I'd also be very happy with a new whittling knife and some hand-drawn cards. No socks or ties, please," because dads often get lumbered with socks or ties. "Love from Milo, Mia and Birdie's dad." And you have to wait till right at the end of the book to find out if they actually get their Christmas wishes from Santa. Meanwhile, they've still got 2 more different lands to go. So then we're more than halfway through the book, and they have special little feast with Silky, and they meet Dame Washalot and her friend Dame Arnolday, and they're all fun. And then they go up into the land of toys. And this is a particularly exciting land. I don't know if ever any of you have been up to London to a great big toy shop called Hamley's. Anybody ever been there? It's a pretty magical shop. I used to get taken there when I was a little girl. I took my daughter there when she was a little girl, and you always know which Hamley's shop is, because outside they have people dressed up singing and dancing, and I always feel a bit sorry for them because they must get so tired, but they're always smiley and jolly. And we go up into the land of toys, and then they're welcomed by Santa's #1 helper elf, who's called Sweetmeat. And he takes them to all the different places where they can see all their favourite toys. And then they can secretly think which one they might actually want. And there are special gingerbread men that they can nibble at. And they actually see all the toy-making places. And then Birdie is thrilled to bits with all the huge toy dogs. And they all... I won't tell you exactly all, because when you read the book, you might like to find out for yourself. And also, when it gets nearer Christmas in the month of December, you might like to write a letter to Santa yourselves, but I can't guarantee that he'll always bring you what you want. And so that is the land of toys. And then they meet a very special gentleman. And he's in red clothes, and he's got a long beard, and he says, ho, ho, ho. So who might it be? Do you think? Santa Claus. Absolutely. Now, have you ever wondered how Santa Claus manages to leave toys, the end of your bed or in a stocking, wherever, even if you haven't got a chimney, so you can't get down the chimney? Well, somewhere or other, he says exactly how he does it. And Birdie meets up with Santa Claus, and Santa asks her what she might like for Christmas, and she says anything at all. She didn't quite know what to call him face to face. Don't worry about it, Sir Santa Christmas, but perhaps it should be very little, because our holiday cottage hasn't got a very big chimney. Don't you worry about it, my dear. I know I'm quite a tubby gentleman. Santa patted his big tummy. So many mince pies are left out for me. I've got such a sweet tooth that I can't resist them. But I promise I'm a dab hand at getting down the narrowest chimneys. I just squeeze myself small enough, Santa demonstrated, taking a tremendous deep breath. And right before their eyes, he shrank himself smaller than Birdie, skinnier than Silky. He stayed like that for a moment or two while they gawped at him, and then breathed out and grew right back to his proper cuddly size. Does the Christmas present shrink too? Milo asked. Yes, it does, just until I put it under the Christmas tree. But what about places that don't have chimneys? Pippin asked. He's a special little bear that lives in the faraway tree, thinking about his little bear cave in the faraway tree. I can squeeze through windows or even creep under doors if necessary, said Santa. And Moonface, who is a little bit magic, asked for his magic spell to do this, because Moonface would absolutely love to do it, but he's not very good at it. I think he's better off just handing out his toffee shocks. So then they go for a ride in Santa's reindeer sleigh, but he's not delivering presents quite yet. And then there's a lot of preparations at home in the cottage for Christmas, and everybody wants to know exactly what's going to happen. And then because it's my book and I think Christmas is lovely when it snows, so it doesn't often, it does snow for Christmas. And then after the children have all had their breakfast, it's decided that they have their presents later on in the day, so they have time to go into the Enchanted Wood, see all their friends having their Christmas parties, which they absolutely love, and climb up and up and up. And all sorts of surprises happen, which I won't tell you about, so that you can feel, if you're reading the book, that, oh, something special is going to happen. And then when they get home, they all get exactly what they wanted. In fact, Mia gets something she never even dreamt of. So I was so happy writing this book. It was as if it was Christmas Day for me all the time. Now, I've had a lovely time, too, talking to all of you about the Faraway Tree, the Magic Faraway Tree, A Christmas Adventure. Now it's your turn, because there are people with microphones. You don't have to be worried about it. If a microphone is put in front of your face, if you want to ask a question, just talk normally into the microphone so that everybody can hear you. So if anybody wants to ask a question, put your hand up, and somebody will come. Okay, somebody over here.
Why did you want to write books?
Why did you want to write books?
Why did I want to write books? Because I loved making up stories inside my head. Long before I could actually write them down, I would sit in a corner. I was an only child, and play very happily, either with characters that I made up, my imaginary friends, or with some dolls, with anything really. If I'd seen something I liked on the television, I might pretend to be those people. So I was always making things up. And then when I got to be able to write, I filled up heaps of different exercise books, because we didn't have computers when I was a little girl. And I just knew that right from the start, that's what I wanted to do, which was just as well, because I don't really see any other job that I could have done. Maybe I could have run my own bookshop. I would have liked that. But apart from that, nothing. Okay?
What was the name of your first book?
The very first book was a book called Ricky's Birthday, which was really quite a little book. You know those books you get which are quite small, with a big picture on every page and then just one or two sentences? That was what Ricky's Birthday was all about. And it was obviously about Ricky wanting birthday presents, really special ones. But he gets, in the end, a really lovely one that doesn't cost anything at all. Ricky's Birthday isn't in the shops anymore, and it's a very long ago book. I think I've just got one copy of it at home, but I've written heaps and heaps of other books since that are probably a bit better than Ricky's Birthday. Okay?
Did you draw the pictures as well?
I wish I could draw the pictures, but no, I don't draw the pictures. In this book, the Magic Faraway Tree books, the pictures are drawn by a man called Mark Beach, and he does all the Faraway Tree books. In my other books, for a long, long time, all my pictures were drawn by my friend Nick Sharrett, and that was lovely. But now Nick doesn't want to do that sort of drawing anymore. So I have another very special friend called Rachel Dean, and she does those drawings. So I'm really lucky I have got 3 different really great illustrators. So any of you who are really good at art, that is really one very special way of having a job where you do all the pictures. Right, somebody at the back.
I've been writing books actually too.
I'm sorry, what about...
She's been writing books too.
You've been writing books too? Oh,
Yes.
That's lovely. What are your books about?
My books are like fairy tales or something like that.
Brilliant. Well, maybe you will grow up to be a writer like me. That would be lovely. And
What's
maybe
your
one
favourite book you you written?
What is your favourite book that you have written?
I think it's probably the story of Tracy Beaker because she's so naughty and I like writing about naughty children. And also she happened to have a very long-running television series which became very popular. So I was pleased about that. Somebody over there.
What age did you start writing of books?
Well, I got my first book published when I was about 23. And that was my third book. I'd written 2 books before that, one of them when I was only a teenager. But not surprisingly, because they weren't very good, nobody wanted to publish them. So it isn't just a matter of you write your story and then send it off to a publisher, because lots of people do that. And you have to try and make it a really special story. And you have to try not to mind if the publisher says, no, not good enough. So you have to just keep on trying. I mean, the J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter stories, 6 publishers turned the Harry Potter books down. I bet they're kicking themselves now. But so if you want to be a writer, it's a lovely thing, but you really, really have to be prepared to be quite tough and determined. Okay, over there.
When did you start writing?
Well, I wrote lots of stories when I was little. I had my first short story published in a magazine when I was 17, and I did actually go and work for this publishing firm, and then I started working on a long ago teenage magazine. So if any teachers in the room remember Jackie magazine, it was named after me, which was quite good fun. Okay.
Jacqueline, we have some questions online from schools watching in their
perfect.
classrooms.
Yes.
So this is from Caversham Park, Year 3.
Yep.
They have 2 questions about your pets. So they say, why do you have a cat? And when do you feed the chickens?
Why do I have a pet? Because they are so lovely, and when you're tired or fed up, your dog will always cuddle up with you or give you a happy lick. Or the times, if I haven't been well, you know, that my cat will come and lie on the end of the bed. The chickens, they're quite young now, so they don't get anything very interesting to eat. They get little pellets, and they jump out of their little coop, like a little house, about 8 o'clock, and come and pick up all this food, and then about 5 o'clock they might have some more. But then when they're older, they can have much more interesting things. They like red things. So in the summer, if it's very hot, we give them strawberries. And in winter, if it's very cold, we give them porridge. And they have little treats in between, in that watermelon they like a lot. They eat all the pink bit and then peck away at the skins. And they also particularly like mealyworms. We don't give them live ones because I don't really fancy scattering live worms around. These are dead ones, but they still don't look very attractive, but that's what they like to eat. And in reward, they give us beautiful, beautiful eggs. So we're very lucky. Okay, over there. What, my darling? Why did
you read a Christmas book to us?
I thought it would be a very good idea to have something that most people, whether it's your own special festival or not, quite like Christmas, because it's generally fun, and you get some presents, you get very good things to eat, and sometimes you meet members of the family you don't usually see. And so sometimes I write quite sad books, although they nearly always have a happy ending. But I thought this is really a happy book all the way through. And it's not too far away for Christmas. We're in October now, and then we just got to get through November, and then it's December, and all the shops will be playing all the Christmas music all over again, and we can all get in the Christmas spirit. Yes.
How many days did you write this book?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I would say about 100 days, maybe. I did, because it was fun for me, and I like making all the things up, so it was quite easy and quick to write it. I should really have got myself a sort of red robe and a false beard and got myself in the real Christmassy mood. I might have written it even faster. Okay?
How long did it take for you to write that book?
Well, I've just said just over 100 days, and I'm so rubbish at maths, I can't translate that into months. There are 365 days in the year, there are 12 months. If anybody's a whiz at mental arithmetic, they can tell me. But it wasn't too long. I mean, if any of you like to write now, don't worry, because when you're young, you won't be able to write great long books. I didn't write a really great long book until I was in my mid-teens. And I often got fed up with the stories. At school, when you're told to write a piece, you've got to finish it or try to finish it. But if it's just for you writing for fun, if you get fed up with it, never mind, start something else. Okay.
What's your favourite animal?
My favourite actual animal of my pets, and don't tell any of the others, is Molly, the Cavapoo. She's especially my little girl. My favourite animals generally, I'm very fond of lemurs, because they look lovely. I love all their black and white tails. And when they sleep at night, it's amazing. They all go in a little round circle with their heads together on the ground or up in a big nest or whatever, and then they wrap their tails all around each other, so they look like a huge, great furry hat. And they're generally very sweet and nice. They don't really like to be touched too much by human beings, but if they're really angry, they make the loudest hollering I've ever heard. And they seem to me most interesting animals. And also, when the sun comes out, if it's really hot, they lie down and they look just like people sunbathing. They spread their arms out so their tummies get exposed to the sun. So, yep, lemurs are definitely my favourites. Shall we have 3 more questions? Right.
Who's your favourite author?
My favourite author. I've got quite a lot of favourite authors. I expect you've all read or had read to you some Julia Donaldson books, like The Gruffalo. I think she's a very good author for younger children. I like, when you're a bit older, look out for books by a wonderful youngish author called Catherine Rundell. And she's very nice. She writes really exciting books that both girls and boys like. And she's very, very clever. She teaches at a university, and she's taught herself how to walk a tightrope. And she can climb up, never ever try and do this. She shouldn't really, but she does. She can climb up outside the tallest building. And I don't know any other authors that can do that. So they're all my favourites, okay?
Why did you want to start writing?
Well, when I was 6, I was writing. When I was 9, I think it says somewhere on some of my books that I wrote my first book when I was 9. Well, of course, it wasn't a real book. It was 20 pages, 20 sides at most. But it was about a big family, and they did have money problems, and they did have a little girl in it who was very fierce and bossy with sort of mad curls, who is a bit like an early version of Tracy Beaker. And I've still got that little handwritten book somewhere, which I think if people asked which children's author wrote this, people would probably be able to guess. Okay, one more.
How old was you when you started writing?
What did you say, darling?
How old were you when you started writing?
Well, it's all different ages, really. I think... Hang on just a moment, my darling. I think soon the question will be when you're going to stop writing, but I hope it's not for a very, very long time. Now, somebody said something up here, yeah.
What is your favourite place to be at?
What's my favourite thing, what?
Favourite place to be at?
Your favourite place?
That is easy peasy for me, because about 8 years ago, I moved to the country, and yet it's very near the seaside. So every evening, I can just hop in a car for 10 minutes, and there I am at the seaside, and I can walk the dogs, and there's a whippy ice cream. Notice I said all about ice cream in the book. I love ice cream, and that is lovely. But also, I'm very near all sorts of woods. I haven't come across an actual faraway tree yet, but you never know. And yet I'm quite near towns. I'm on the edge of a lovely village, and I like it so much that last year I didn't go on holiday, and I'm not even sure I'll be able to fit in a holiday this year, but that's my absolute favourite magic place. And I won't get back there till the evening because I'm doing an event about my adult book, but when I get home, I always think, yes, I'm back home in my favourite place. But I tell you this, having gone to Henley, this is for the second time, I think Henley is a pretty wonderful place. And this venue in particular, you know, right in front of the gorgeous river, is lovely. So maybe I could put Henley as my second best place. But anyway, it's been lovely talking to you today, and you've been a brilliant audience, and I hope everybody who's been watching online have been enjoying it too, and I wish we could all be together. But thank you all very much for being so splendid today.